Hey guys, welcome to the last part of the series, part 3. This was filmed on, and if you're just wondering, these 3 videos were actually posted on the 3 days the Battle of Gettysburg actually happened, if you guys are wondering. But this was made on July 2nd, the second day of the Battle of Gettysburg. So, this year is the 151st anniversary of the battle. So yeah. So if you want to go down like at Gettysburg now, they have like celebrations, like reenactments stuff going on too. So yeah. Okay. So in the last video, the Union troops made a grave mistake. Not the Union troops, but General Sickles made a big mistake. He basically thought the high ground was not going to do any good. It went to the low ground, and he moved the front too forward, and he basically put all his troops in the wheat field and Devil's Den, which are famous for being the 2 bloodiest places in the battle. So now, in the last episode, General Meade has arrived with his troops too. Also too, we mentioned General Longstreet too. We mentioned him for the first time. He's going to play a big role in this part of the series too, this video too. I'm saying too much. I don't care if I'm saying too much. Too much. Yeah, it's super unnecessary. So, and also, what else happened? Not much happened. That's pretty much it. That all happened last video. Okay, so now let's start with day 3. So now it's day 3 in the southern. So in the last video we ended with the Confederates at the bottom of Culp's Hill. Culp's Hill, so it's C-U-L-P-S. At the bottom of Culp's Hill. In the camping there. They want to do a surprise attack on the Union, like before dawn kind of thing. But the Confederates attack never happened, because at 4:30 a.m. in the morning, the Union opened fire on the Confederates on top of Culp's Hill. The Confederates, well, of course, returned fire. The fighting was fierce, but it was like very fierce fighting. But the Confederates were stopped by a brigade of New York soldiers. So, as I mentioned in the last 2 other videos, if you have not seen those, go watch the first 2 first. But if you just don't want to watch the first 2 first, I will tell you. So, states play a big role in the Battle of Gettysburg. Like this memorial that just came famous on the news after a kid fell off the top of it. Cause you can go to the top, like there's people, this is the biggest memorial at Gettysburg. This is the Pennsylvania Memorial. You can actually walk to the top of it. This opened in 1906, 1909, somewhere in that area. Okay. So each state that was part of the battle put money in to build a memorial for the soldiers who fought in the battle. There's lots of northern memorials, not many southern. But there's a whole bunch of different memorials. Like this, a memorial from where General Lee just watched Pickett's charge, and look how big it is. And see, like there's memorials for everything, kind of thing. So there's there's even a memorial for a guy who died, for a general who died. Like, hey, a general died right here, that kind of thing. There's a memorial for, like, this is where the New York Brigade was camped here on day 2 of the battle. But also, I kind of to kind of get the layout of the whole battle kind of thing. The whole battle happened pretty much in a mile radius of each, like, every place happened in a mile radius of each other kind of thing. So the New York soldiers had stopped the Confederates from getting the hill. The Union had dug in behind log fences, which gave them good cover. Those log fences are right there. Also, these log fences can still be seen today. Log fences. See, those are all memorials, as I was talking about. That's all. I don't mind, pictures are so blurry. But it's day 3. So, good map for day 3. So you kind of get, it's so blurry though. But I'll go back to this battle picture. So, as I said, they dug in, and the Union sharpshooters were able to pick off the Confederates one by one as they try to scramble up the hill. So the rebels have tried to gain the hill twice by this point. Both times they were forced to retreat. By mid-morning, they have lost the ground that they gained before. So besides the attack on Culp's Hill, Lee had one other plan. Lee's plan for July 3rd had 2 parts. One consisted of a massive infantry attack of 15,000 people on the center of the long Union line, which you can see in the blue. Like, look how long the line is. And at the same time, General Jeb Stuart's cavalry would catch the enemy from behind. See? So back then, so as you see how the line kind of, like this red line all the way to right, kind of goes like a little bit like a kind of swoosh, and it's kind of like a fish hook kind of thing. So the weakest part of the line, like at the time, was the edges of the line. That was always the weakest part of the whole line, was the edges of the line. So that's why it's like that. Okay. So Stuart, this was like Lee's most trusted scout, and up to this point, he has been like the bench warmer of this whole thing. Like, his men has seen no action. They were like puppies being inside a cage like for 6 hours as the owners like a party kind of thing. And then when they get home, they want to play, kind of do things, play fetch kind of thing. Like, they were like barely containing excitement, kind of waiting. So let's rewind a whole bunch. So when the Confederate Army came into Pennsylvania at the end of June, Lee had given Stuart very clear orders that Stuart's cavalry was to scout for any Union troops that might be in Pennsylvania, and report the numbers and movements. And Lee, Stuart, has done this kind of scouting before. Lee was like really hoping that they got like accurate descriptions, but Stuart had not reported back. Almost as soon as Stuart started moving north, they met up with the Union wagon train. Boom! That's how the Battle of Gettysburg pretty much started. So the wagons were filled with supplies that the Confederates badly needed. So Stuart's men easily captured the wagons, and Stuart decided to bring the valuable supplies to Lee. This was a very bad decision. Moving the supplies slowed down Stuart so much that means Northern troops had moved into Pennsylvania without Lee knowing where they were. It turned out that they were about 20 miles away at Gettysburg. That's kind of how the Battle of Gettysburg kind of pretty much started, when Confederate scouts bumped into some Union troops on cavalry, shots fired, boom, Gettysburg started. That's how that all happened. Okay, so by this time, Stuart had learned that the two armies were at Gettysburg. The battle had started. Stuart finally abandoned his supply trade and hurried to Lee's headquarters. Lee, who was fine as Stuart, greeted him very meanly, coldly. That's what they say. Okay, so if Lee had known that the Northern soldiers were so close by, he could have set up a surprise attack. So Lee, at this point, he thought he was like invincible kind of thing. He has beat the Union soldiers at Chancellorsville, Fredericksburg, and at Bull Run 2 times. So Lee was like, he was thinking like he was like Superman, but this Superman had no kryptonite kind of thing. He thought he could get to DC by like the end of the year kind of thing. So now these pretty mad. So the cavalry attack on July 3rd gave Stuart the chance to redeem himself as trustworthy kind of thing. So now, meanwhile, General Longstreet was still trying to convince Lee to abandon the attack and move south. Longstreet, as last episode, totally disagreed with the plan that Lee had. Longstreet thought it was going to be like instant death kind of thing, and it was going to end well. But once again, he was once again arguing that the Union position from Cemetery Hill along Cemetery Ridge to Low Round Top was too strong. Because, like, look how long this line is. Like, dude, that's a pretty strong line kind of thing. So also the soldiers were exhausted from the last 2 days of fighting, and fresh troops were greatly needed. So, quoting General Longstreet, "General, I have been a soldier all my life. It's my opinion that no 15,000 men have ever arrayed a battle can take that position." So from that quote right there, Longstreet did not want to do this. So by that position, he meant that the miles-long Union line, 15,000 men were not enough to do the job. Lee, however, refused to listen, thinking that he was invincible. He was so determined to stick with his plan, he could defeat the army at Gettysburg. "We will attack," he told Longstreet. So for the exhausted Confederate troops, there was good news that General George Pickett, along with his 5,400 soldiers from Virginia, arrived late on that evening of July 2nd. They were the last to arrive at Gettysburg. Pickett's men have not fought at all yet. Lee went and combined both forces together to Lee combined parts of 2 other divisions. Still, the total number was only 12,500 soldiers instead of the 15,000 that Lee planned. Lee had 160 cannons facing the Union lines. They would bombard and knock out the enemy. Well, cannons. So, if you're not, I mentioned this in the first video. The Battle of Gettysburg is very is very, very complicated to talk about. So you have to talk about all these different lines. Like, look at all these lines. Like, there's lines coming from the back side, blah, blah, blah. Like, look at all these lines. So, the Confederates had so many lines up, kind of thing. Like, literally, like, look at all those lines that were drawn on that page. So, that's supposed to be a joke. Ha, ha, ha. Sorry. So, it's very complicated to talk about all the events that happened behind the scenes. Flying the town, fighting on some hill, Little Round Top, Devil's Den, the wheat field. All this stuff happened in kind of my radius. So I'm using a book to help me refresh my mind and kind of get this so it's as much accurate as possible. So that's why you hear pages flipping in the background. I'm using the Who Was book, actually. The What Was about Gettysburg. It's the most informational book about Gettysburg I've ever read, so it's highly recommended. So, doing this, they'll use cannons to inflict heavy losses onto the soldiers. Then the rebels will charge a small grove of trees that Lee believed this was the weakest point of the Union line. If successful, this charge would split the Union line in half. Just a little breather for a sec. He's been talking non-stop for almost an hour. At 1 o'clock, 160 Southern cannons fired at once. The noise was so loud that this could be heard at Harrisburg, which is 40 miles away. It's the capital of Pennsylvania. The Union cannons answered back. Soon the entire battlefield was covered in thick white smoke. Neither side was able to see each other. Artillery crews, which are the soldiers who manned the cannons, could not aim properly. Most of the Confederate cannons were missing the targets. And the Confederates didn't know that. So, the funny thing was, so what happened at this point in the battle, the Confederate cannons were literally just flying over the Union, the cannonballs were just literally flying over the Union troops. So the Union troops just decided to stop firing. Because, like, why waste perfectly good ammunition kind of thing? Because the Confederates were not even hitting anyone. So, on the Union side, General Henry Hunt was commander of the artillery. Hunt was, he was a pretty experienced smart man. He's kind of done this a lot of time before. After the first hour of the state bombardment, he ordered his men to cease firing because some cannons were moved back out of sight. He wanted to fool the rebels into thinking that the Union cannons had been totally knocked out, destroyed. This trick actually worked. When the fight from the Union cannons stopped, the Confederates believed that the enemy cannons were all destroyed. Still, the Southern bombardment went on for another hour until they were pretty much out of ammunition. The Southern artillery officer sent a note to General Pickett and said that 18 guns had been driven off. So, yeah. And so Pickett found Longstreet, and he said, "General, shall I advance?" Longstreet did not answer, because General Pickett had to get the okay from Longstreet. Longstreet did not answer, but he merely bowed his head. Pickett took this as like a yes, and he said, "I shall lead my division forward," Pickett told him. The Confederate troops began their advance. 12,000 men, 12,500 men, had to cross 3/4 of a mile in open fields in the July heat in Pennsylvania. The Union cannons waited for the rebels to get into close range. The Union soldiers crouched behind like stone walls, ready with the rifles loaded. Union General Winfield Scott Hancock had only 6,000 men left of the 12,000 who had come with him in Gettysburg 2 days earlier. He watched the rebels advance. The flags of each regiment led the way. So here's why they carried the flags in battle. It was to show the Confederate So let's say you are holding a Confederate flag. You're at the front of the line. It was to show the Confederates where the front of the line was. So Hancock would later say these lines were formed with precision and steadiness. He admired that. On 7-Day Ridge, Lee sat on his horse. This is the memorial where he pretty much sat on his horse. Like, it's a pretty big memorial for a place where Lee sat on his horse, so. Well, his horse's name was Traveler. It was his favorite horse. He could see the men get closer and closer to the Union line. Suddenly, Union artillery opened fire. Boom. Within 2 or 3 minutes, hundreds of Confederates were killed or wounded. Still, the Confederate officers urged the troops to keep moving forward. Then Northern artillery began firing. Canister shots from the cannons. Canister shots were kind of projectiles with a bunch of little balls kind of stuffed in them. Kind of thing. The canisters would come upon midair and take out like 50 people. This was actually the only defense cannon that the artillery people actually had. So the people manning the cannons had no guns on them. The only thing they had to defend them was little canisters filled with balls, which was those little shots. So this is like kind of basics for shotgun. The balls are spread out and kill like 50 people. Pickett's soldiers were blown to bits. What remained of the Confederate soldiers was only 100 yards away. The Union soldiers suddenly stood and fired a volley straight at them. The whole front wing of the Confederates were wiped out. The Union riflemen were targeting Confederate officers. All but one were killed or wounded. Before they reached the enemy line. General Hancock was running behind the Union line, observing the action. All of a sudden, a bullet went through the top of his saddle onto his thigh. This was a severe wound. Hancock was not expected to survive. So the hooks, as I was talking about on each end of the Union line, swung out. Union soldiers faced the flanks of the rebel troops. Now the Confederates were surrounded by 3 sides, for Pete's sakes. So I'm really out of breath. I'm hungry. It's like lunchtime. The only thing I had for breakfast was the M&M Yo Crunch yogurt and Pop-Tarts. So I'm hurrying up. So General Lewis Armstead was the only Confederate officer to reach the stone wall that marked the Union line. He was rushing forward with the stone sword out. Some of his men had just burst through the enemy line with Armstead, was shot. Seconds later, he was actually captured. Armstead knew he was shot and he knew he was dying. Before the war, Armstead and Hancock served together and become friends. So they're close friends. When the Southern states actually succeeded, both men joined opposite sides. But that did not win the friendship. Now Armstead asked a Union officer to give his pocket watch and spurs and personal items to General Hancock. The officer told him that Hancock had been seriously wounded and it was uncertain that he would survive. Armstead tell General Hancock that I've done him and done you all the injury which I regret longest day I live. Armstead said he died 2 days later in a field hospital. Hancock was luckier. He survived the war. He returned his friend's possessions to his family. And the spot where Armstead died is marked with a memorial, which is this little plaque that said, "Hey, Armstead died here," kind of thing. As I said, there's memorials for everything. So besides marking Armstead's death, this was the high watermark of the Confederate attack at Gettysburg. Pickett's charge was what was later called was the Confederates' last chance to defeat the Union and win the war, and it ended horribly wrong. Many were wounded and had to be helped off the battlefield. Many more were too weak even to move, and hundreds of bodies littered the battleground. John Pickett and his retreating soldiers drew closer to their own line as they saw General Lee on his horse. He told Pickett to prepare his troops for counterattack. John Pickett told Lee, "I have no division." Lee was later reported going through his camp saying, I'm sorry, that was a horrible decision." He felt so bad about what he did and gave the okay kind of thing. At the end of the day, each army was holding almost the same position, and when the sun had risen that moment, had been holding the same position from earlier that morning. The day had been very costly for the Confederates. Losses numbered over 7,000 men. By comparison, the Union Army had only lost around 3,000. After this, Lee decided to retreat from Gettysburg. Lee would never later attempt to attack the South ever again. And he would spend the rest of the war on the run until he would later be surrounded at Appomattox Courthouse, Virginia, where he would later surrender to the Union. This battle, and so then Gettysburg was done. After Pickett's charge, it was done. Lee was spending the rest of the war on the run, but Meade, who had the war were going for 2 years, because Meade made the horrible mistake of not chasing down Lee. Then Meade was taken out. Then Ulysses S. Grant, who won Vicksburg on the next day. Vicksburg was another big win for the Union Army, because that means the whole Mississippi River was under their control. Then Grant was later in charge of all Union soldiers. And then that's pretty much the end of the Battle of Gettysburg. So then, on November 19th, 1863, President Lincoln will visit, giving his Gettysburg address. His 2-minute speech is one of the best was the best speech ever in American history, beating out the 2-hour speech the guy named Evan Everett said 2-hour speech and had to go to the bathroom 5 times. So then on the 7th, after the war was over, each side people rejoiced that the war was over. Soldiers from each side were given memorials and parties was thrown for them. But 75 years after the war is over, all these parades for the Civil War veterans slowly went away, because it's happening now with World War II. The people simply are dying off. There's not many left of World War II. Same thing happened during World War II in the 1940s. Same thing was happening with the Civil War soldiers. They are dying off. On the 75th anniversary of the Battle of Gettysburg, FDR made a speech. There was a big memorial for the speech. Thousands of people were there. And lots of men too. They witnessed this big
thing, not knowing that almost in 2-3 years, they would be the ones on the battlefield fighting in Europe, Japan, and everywhere. This painting right here is actually part of one of the biggest paintings in the world, which you can go see at Gettysburg. Man, I'm starving. Okay, so if you like the video, please leave a like and subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!